Hello and welcome back to another episode of Maddie's Rap, the show where we rap about things that guys rap about when we're hanging out. Today's episode of Maddie's Rap is going to be a scripture edition, and if you guys have been following me since at least January 1, you know that in 2020, almost all of my Maddie's Rap editions are going to be scripture editions. Why? Well, because if you haven't paid attention, this world is going through some major, let me say upgrades, because that's a positive spin on what's going on in the world today. Anyway, today's date is May the 10th, 2020. And you know what? I'm excited to share with you guys today's edition. Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive, not skirting around the surface like I have in some of my other videos. We're going to be doing a deep dive into two chapters that I feel are probably, I won't say underrated, but I will say probably two of the most overlooked chapters in the church today, in the church establishment. And I don't care what denomination you are. I came up in the Kojic or Pentecostal, if you will. Kojic stands for Church of God in Christ. That was my early upbringing. I sort of flirted with Baptist a while, and I went to some non-denominational churches in my time. And I can tell you that these two chapters that I'll be talking about today were pretty much virtually untouched. Well, sometimes things go in the refrigerator or go in the freezer until it's time to thaw out and eat them, right? Well, today I thawed it out yesterday, and today I'm ready to cook this bad boy and serve it up. So check it out. Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26, a study in history, not theology. Coming up after this short break. Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26, an up-close, non-theology look at the history of the Israelites. In today's presentation, we take a historical look into two of the most important and yet most oft overlooked texts of biblical history. And why did I emphasize non-theology? Well, taking into consideration that theology is a study of religion, these two texts, in my opinion, have next to nothing to do with religion, but rather are an intimate look into a relationship between the Creator himself and the people whom he called my chosen. Let us continue. Agenda. First, I'll do an overview. What are Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26, and how are they relative to this lesson? Next, I'll explain how the curses, or annoyances as they are called in the mechanical translation from Hebrew, more on that in a minute, can be grouped into four distinct epochs. Third, I'll read Deuteronomy 28. And fourth, I'll review and categorize each of the verses of that chapter into those four epochs. Now, before I continue with the rest of the agenda, let me take a minute to explain what a mechanical translation is. Now, this explanation came from the website, and if you want to read the mechanical translation of the first 5 books of the Bible, visit www.mechanical-translation.org. That dash, I mean, in saying dash, I mean hyphen. www.mechanical-translation.org. Now, what exactly is a mechanical translation? What does that mean? The mechanical translation of the Hebrew Bible Project began in 2005 with the publication of a book by an author by the name of Jeff A. Benner. The title of that book is The Ancient Hebrew Lexicon of the Bible. The Ancient Hebrew Lexicon of the Bible. This lexicon laid the foundation for a translation of the Hebrew Bible, where each word would be translated faithfully according to its original linguistic and cultural perspective. Mr. Benner's vision of this translation included a translation that did the following. 1. Eliminates personal and religious bias on the part of the translator. 2. Translates each Hebrew word, prefix and suffix, exactly the same way, every time it occurred in the text. 3. Could be read and understood by the average person who does not have any prior knowledge of the Hebrew language. 4. Includes a dictionary of each word used in the translation as well as a concordance. And 5. Could be used as a tool by those who are learning to read biblical Hebrew. So again, for more on the mechanical translation or to read the first 5 books of the Bible, visit www.mechanical-translation.org. Next, I'll read Leviticus 26, after which I will review and categorize its verses into those 4 epochs. And finally, I'll provide some final commentary and wrap up the presentation. Overview. What are Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26? Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26 are what I like to call sister chapters. Why? Well, if you were to read both of those chapters in their respective entireties, you would notice a similar pattern. In those chapters, what you see outlined is a set of conditional promises from the God of Israel to the children of Israel. If one set of conditions is met, a multitude of blessings like peace, protection, and prosperity are the built-in reward. However, if a contrary set of conditions is met, a plethora of harsh maladies levied and sustained over a long period of time is the built-in punishment for failure to adhere to the instructions. The key thing to remember is that the Israelites had a choice. They could either keep the commandments of God or keep the commandments of the God of their salvation, the one who brought them out of Egypt. And, the interesting thing is, if you look at the mechanical translation that I talked about in a previous slide, what you see is rather than keep the commandments, you see the word safeguard being used. Safeguard has a very different perspective when you look at it. If somebody keeps something, let's say, for example, you're about to go on vacation and you want somebody to keep something for you. Hey, you know what? I want you to keep this Rolex watch at your house. Now, I don't own a Rolex, but I'm trying to think of something of value. Okay. I'm going on vacation. I don't want to take this watch with me, and I don't want to leave it at the house because I don't want my teenage son to put it on and go out and floss in it and get it stolen or robbed or whatever. So you go to your friend and you say, keep this watch for me. Now, he says, okay, he keeps it somewhere. But if you say to that friend, I want you to safeguard this watch for me, the word safeguard has an entirely different meaning to it. It's heavier. When you're safeguarding something, you're typically safeguarding something that has value, has a high level of value to it. So I found it very interesting that the King James Version said, keep the commandments, and the mechanical translation said, safeguard. So safeguard was and I don't have the Hebrew word in front of me, but again, you can read this chapter, Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26 in the mechanical translation, and I gave you the how to get to that website in a previous slide. Anyway, getting back to this, the key thing to remember is that the Israelites had a choice. They could either safeguard those commandments or go the opposite route and do what their surrounding neighbors suggested was the cool thing to do or the way that they should be living. Very interesting stuff here. I'll continue. Now, let's take a look at the 4 epochs that I mentioned in the agenda. Epoch 1, I have listed as the Siege of Jerusalem. Now, if you know the history, you know that the Israelites or the Judeans or the Yahudim, as they're also called, were engaged in a war against the Romans that lasted from about 66 AD through about 70 AD, with a final skirmish or uprising occurring in 73 AD at the Siege of Masada. And now, of course, there was another one in about 100-something AD that called the Bar Kokhba Revolt, but I don't mention that. I mean, by that time, the curses or annoyances as listed in Deuteronomy 28 and 26 were well underway, so I don't even deal with the Bar Kokhba revolt. The second epoch is the post-Roman Judeo conflict And the curses there, or that occurred during that epic, or the annoyances that occurred during that epic, were felt by the people I have listed here while still in homeland. So as you know, the after the fall of Jerusalem, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Yahudim were slaughtered. And those that weren't slaughtered escaped further south and west into the African continent. I say further south and west because we know that Israel and Egypt are part of the African continent. They sit on the African tectonic plate. You can look that stuff up. Okay. They fled further south and west into the African continent, running from these Roman conquerors. But there were some that stayed in their homeland. They either stayed there as slaves, or they hid in the desert, or whatever. So some of these annoyances that you see listed in Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26 were endured by those that stayed in the homeland. Epic 3 occurred is the period after fleeing the homeland and ongoing. So these are the things that happened to these Israelites while in exile, after fleeing their homeland, not long after fleeing, and I have in parentheses there, and ongoing, because some of these continued through the present, well into the future at least. And the final epic, Epic 4, occurred during the transit. Those curses occurred during the transatlantic slave trade, during slavery, and after the emancipation, and even ongoing through today. Now, let's begin. The presentation where we roll our sleeves up and do a little bit of work here. This is where we get into the reading. Now, before I get started reading Deuteronomy 28, the 28th chapter, I'll have you know that the version of the Bible I'm reading from is the King James Version, and this is the Olive Tree Bible app. I'm doing it on my MacBook Pro, but the Olive Tree Bible is also available on Android and Apple, as far as I know. Now, while I'm not exactly sure about Android, but I'm pretty sure there's an Android version of it. I can't say for certain. I'm using the Apple version, and I also have the iOS version of it. But I'm pretty, you know what? In fact, I'm absolutely certain now that the Olive Tree Bible is on Android, because I downloaded it for my mom onto her phone. So anyway, Olive Tree Bible is the one I'm using, and I'm using the King James Version. And one other thing before I get started reading, I did make myself a couple of notes here. So I will be jumping back and forth in some spots to the mechanical translation at www.mechanical-translation.org, because there are a couple of verses that I highlighted that I thought might be interesting for you to see what that actual original Hebrew meaning of that was. Of course, translated to English, but again, if you've read Mr. Jeff Benner's book, The Lexicon of the Hebrew Bible, the Ancient Lexicon of the Hebrew Bible, you understand that one of the things that he says in one of his premises is that the original Hebrews had a different way of thinking and a different way that they viewed the world through a different lens. In a nutshell, there were no such things as abstract concepts. Everything was concrete and could be related to something in nature or something physical that you could see or touch. So anyway, just wanted to give that note out there. I will be jumping to the mechanical translation. So now, without further ado, I'll begin reading Deuteronomy 28. I'm going to read straight through, and then I'll come back and just sort of breeze through and show you guys which verses apply to which epochs, either Epic 1, which was the siege of Jerusalem, Epic 2, which was while they were still in their homeland but after the siege, Epic 3 was after leaving their homeland and going into other places, and of course ongoing beyond that. And then Epic 4 had to do with slavery and the transatlantic slave trade, and in some cases moving, still existing today. So now, let me not belabor this anymore. I'll jump right into it. Deuteronomy 28. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I commanded thee on this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee, and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kine, or livestock basically, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shalt be thy basket and thy store. Blessed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. The Lord shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way, and flee before thee 7 ways. The Lord shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses, and in all that thou settest thine hand unto. And he shall bless thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. The Lord shall establish thee an holy people unto himself. And he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God and walk in his ways, and all the people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of thee. And the Lord shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy ground, and in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers to give thee. The Lord shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven, to give rain unto thy land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. Now, I made a note here. I'm going to take a pause here, and this is interesting because when you compare that verse 12, lending, thou shalt lend to many nations and shalt not borrow, it's got a little slightly different meaning in the mechanical translation, which I'm going to jump to right now. Now, that was verse 12. Verse 12, let's see. Verse 12 right here. And, that's the other thing I wanted to mention, guys. In the Bible, anywhere you see the Lord thy God, or his name is the Lord thy God, anytime you see that, that is a whole scale edit, because what you see here in the original Hebrew is the name of the Most High. I've heard it pronounced different ways, Yahuwah and Yahweh, but that is this YHW right here. Let's click off of there. This YHWH, Yahuwah. Now, unfortunately, I don't have my and you can see the name here in the Hebrew spelling. But if you don't know the Hebrew characters, that won't mean anything to you. So anyway, getting back to that, it was just something I thought that was noteworthy. Now, Yahuwah will open for you his functional supply house. The skies will give the precipitation of your land in his appointed time, and to respect all the work of your hand. And you will make many nations join, but you will not join. Now, that's interesting that they use the word join here, or the original text was join, and the English translation is lend. Now, if you understand the concept, remember, Mr. Benner says that in his work, he says that the ancient Hebrews had they didn't have these abstract concepts like lending. That didn't mean anything. In those days, you joined yourself to someone if you needed something. So what he's saying here is, you will not join, but they will join to you. Or you will make many nations join you, but you will not join them. Meaning, you're not going to have to ask anybody for anything. But others will come and ask you, because that's how bountiful and plenteous I'm going to make you. So anyway, I thought that was noteworthy. Again, you can see the website here, mechanicaltranslation.org. I've got it listed a couple times in the PowerPoint slide deck and everything. But I'm going to go back here now and continue reading. All right, that was verse 12. Verse 13, and the Lord shall make thee the head and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath. If that thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I commanded thee this day, to observe and to do them, and thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed. Now, when it says basket and store here, you have to remember that these were agricultural people too. The basket is what they used to gather their crops in the harvest time, And then the store, of course, is where they stored their grain, their vegetables, things that weren't perishable, things that would keep. They would store them in these storehouses. So this is what it means when it says thy basket and thy store, meaning when he says your basket, curse will be your basket, meaning you're not going to have, your basket's going to be empty. You're not going to collect anything to put in there. And by the way, your store, you're not going to have anything in there either. So, and keep in mind, in those times when they had storehouses, there were times where the things didn't grow, but they may have had so much abundance that they would have things left over in the storehouse to carry them through a time of famine or a time that the earth did not yield any fruit. Or we know if you've planted crops ever, or if you know anybody who's ever farmed, you know that the fields don't always give the same amount of yield. So anyway, that's just an aside. Let me get back to this. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Where are we? 20, goest out. Okay, 20, verse 20. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, unto thou be destroyed, and unto thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whither thou goest to possess it, or the land where you go to possess it. The Lord shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. Now I'm going to stop here and jump over to the mechanical translation again. It pretty much says blasting there too. You guys may not know what that means exactly. That was verse 22, blasting. Okay. Yahuwah will attack you with consumption and with fever and with inflammation and with a burning flame and with the sword and with the blasting. Blasting here. I'll look that up. Now, here is how I was able to determine what that word meant. Here's the Hebrew word right here for blasting. If I can highlight it. Let's see. There we go. Uvashidafon. Now, I'm not really good with this. I've been studying a little bit of Hebrew, and I do know that Hebrew is what's considered a consonantal language. It doesn't have any vowels. Modern Hebrew, as you can see here, they've added this thing called the Nakud, which is a series of dots and dashes, but that stuff didn't exist in the original, the ancient Hebrew. I think modern day people that picked this language up after the original inhabitants, after it became what was known as a dead language because nobody was speaking it. When the original Israelites were scattered, they spoke whatever language that was spoken in the lands that they went to. And even prior to their scattering or their dispersal, their dispersal to the four corners of the earth, they actually spoke Greek. So they were already kind of Hellenized. They were speaking the language of the Greeks, who were the invaders prior to the arrival of the Romans. But anyway, getting back to this, Uvashidafon, I don't know how to pronounce that right anyway, but I'll work on that. But I had to understand what I was looking at, I went and looked up the original, the Paleo Hebrew characters that coincided with what you're looking at here in the modern Hebrew. And what I noticed, and the thing I love about Paleo Hebrew is, especially the ancient pictographic Hebrew originally was a pictographic language, just like the Egyptian hieroglyphics were. When you look at the meaning of what these characters were in the original Hebrew, it always tells a story. So that was what I was able to ascertain that blasting meant. And again, I don't have the Paleo Hebrew in front of me, but basically you've got a wow there, which was the tent peg. That first character there is a tent peg. The second character is bet, which was the house, or the tent. The third character there is the sheen, which is the like teeth, or it typically represented like teeth or something that was like threshing or whatever. And then the fourth character, and you guys gently correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff. The fourth character there is the Dalet. The Dalet was pretty much the door to the tent. The fifth character there was the Fae, which was like a mouth or represented blowing, and then you got the noon character there. You got the noon character twice. So you got the noon and then noon Sophet, which is like the final version of the noon. The Sophet letters they're typically a little longer and go below the line. Now, when I was able to look at the pictographic Hebrew, it showed a picture, and the picture that it showed me in reading that word from right to left as Hebrew goes was a violent blowing. When you got house, you got a tent. That blasting and that all of that put together, when you look at it in pictographic Hebrew, shows a picture that I believe is a wind, strong wind, violent storms. So that's what that means by blasting. I wanted to share that with you guys because I didn't know what it meant, and it took me going back to the original Hebrew to look at exactly what blasting meant. At first, I thought sandstorm, but then I realized that blasting meant like a violent wind. So it could, storm, hurricane, whatever, violent wind is blasting. Now, let me jump back, guys. Thank you. I apologize for that lengthy side street, going down that side street there, but I wanted you guys to understand what blasting meant. So we're going to go back to that. And with blasting and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. Verse 23, and thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. The Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee, until thou be destroyed. Now, interestingly enough, when you look at the modern land of Israel, the modern land of Egypt as well, remember, anytime the Israelites got in trouble, with whether it be famine or running from an enemy, they typically went further south into the continent, further south into the African continent. And really, when you go south of Israel, Egypt is right there. I mean, Egypt is right there. If you're in the Charlotte, North Carolina area, in my mind, them walking from Egypt to Israel back and forth was the equivalent of your walking down 77 from Charlotte to Columbia. I mean, that's literally how close they were. So depending on where you were in relation to the border. So now, if you look at those lands today, they look nothing like they did in the ancient times. These were fertile lands. They didn't look dusty and brown and mostly looking like desert with some irrigation in places and some farmlands in there. These had to be fertile places. And the scriptures, if you read the scriptures, they tell a story. David killing bear. Bear live in forest. You don't see bear in the desert. David killing a bear with his sling. So you know that these areas were fertile at the time. They are not nearly as fertile as they were then. You can look up the average. You can Google the average rainfall of those two countries now. And just imagine, and I've seen documentaries that talk about Egypt and talk about the causeways, and that the pyramids were usually situated around waterways or causeways or whatever. And now, of course, you see all desert and dust. So a lot of people don't believe that when you have that conversation with them. But if you understand that, how many years of drought, meaning no rain, how many summers and winters of no rain would it take to take wherever you live right now that may be lush and turn it into looking like a desert? And conversely, how much rainfall would you need to take a place like Arizona and make it look like the Carolinas? So all of this stuff is dictated by weather and climate. But anyway, back to verse 24. I thought that was noteworthy. The Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. It's going to be interesting when we break these down and put these into epics. Verse 25. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee seven ways before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. The Lord will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerald, and with the scab, and with the itch whereof thou cannot be healed. The Lord shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. And thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build a house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, or donkey, ass, donkey, mule, something to carry the load. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed alway, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. The Lord shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. The Lord shall bring thee and thy king which thou shalt set over thee unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, and there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine, nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coast, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. Now I've got a note here to jump to the mechanical translation, so I'll show you what that word stranger means in the original Hebrew sense. Here we go. The immigrant who is in among you will go up upon you very high, but you will go down very low. The immigrant, interesting. I've just swallowed a throat lozenge, or just put in a throat lozenge there, just to kind of keep my voice a little bit. The immigrant. Who were the immigrants in Israel? The immigrants were the Greeks and the Romans. They weren't native to that land. Remember, Israel's in Africa. The Greeks and the Romans were the immigrants. It says here, the immigrant who is in among you will go up upon you very high, but you will go down very low. Remember, I call these two chapters, or Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26, prophecy turned history. Anyway, let's get back to the text. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high. This is verse 43. And thou shalt come down very low. Verse 44. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee in hunger and in thirst. Now, let me get back. Let me skip back, because I just looked down at my notes. I had a note here to take a look at verse 45. My notes here say verse 45 begs for a cross-reference with Leviticus 26 and 39 through 45. So I'm going to do that right now. I haven't read Leviticus chapter 26 yet, but you guys know we're going there. So let me just do this now, because sometimes I get into this and I get excited and then forget my place, forget to go back. So I said Leviticus 26 and 39 through 45. Verse 45 begs for a cross-reference with Leviticus 26 and 39 through 45. All right, let's take a look. Leviticus 26 and 39 through 45. You know what? I don't want to do this just yet. Guys. Let me jump back. I don't want to do it just yet. But I'll come back to that, I promise. Verse 43, I said, let's jump to the I did 43, the stranger. 46, jump to the mechanical translation. Okay, verse 46. Let's see. Jump to the mechanical. All right. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Okay. I want you guys to see something here, because if you look at this in the standard traditional Bible that we have today, and they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. This looks final. This looks very final. This sounds like, you know what? When I punish you guys, all these curses are going to be upon you for a sign and a wonder, and upon thy seed forever. Okay? So that sounds like all hope is lost for the Israelites to ever get out from under these curses. However, if you cross-reference this, and I'm sorry, guys, if my wife were here right now, she heard me, she'd say, spit that out. So I just spit it out. Okay. Now, guys, if we take a look at the mechanical translation here, take a look at that. Let's look at that. Verse 46. And they will exist in you for a sign and for a wonder, and in your seed until a distant time. So the original Hebrew here, it's not final. It's not forever and ever and ever. It simply says these curses are going to be upon you and your seed until a distant time. That is very significant. That is very significant, because what that illustrates is that, hey, you know what? Those that were cursed from their disobedience from thousands of years ago aren't going to be cursed forever. It just says a distant time. That's a time of his choosing. That is the time of Yahuwah's choosing, of the Most High's choosing, Yahweh, Yahuwah, however you want to pronounce it, whatever the correct pronunciation is, until a time of his choosing in the future, a distant time, a future. That's the original Hebrew. So it doesn't say forever. Forever is in perpetuity. This is why when you're studying scripture, you have to cross-reference. And I'll tell you what, I like this. I like Jeff Benner's mechanical translation. I bought his book, the Ancient Lexicon of the Hebrew Bible, and it's a phenomenal book. I recommend you get it. It's available. I got it on Kindle. I'm not sure about if it's a hard copy. I'm guessing it is. I wasn't interested, so I really didn't look. Kindle is what I wanted to do. But anyway, keep that in mind, guys. That is not. It says here, upon thy seed forever, but that is not the original intent. So throw that out of your mind, because this is important. Now, continue on, verse 47. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things, therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. A yoke of iron. Think about that. He shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Now, when you see destroyed here, understand something. He didn't mean, and you're going to see this in Leviticus when I read Leviticus, that too was not something that was final. Destruction means you're done. You're finished. Destruction in this sense is broken until I've broken you out of those ways that you were in. Until I have broken you. What parent destroys their kid? No, they don't destroy their child. When their child is disobedient, they do what is necessary to break them out of that disobedient pattern. And it's typically for their good, because they know that disobedience to the rules could later build something in you that down the road can lead to your destruction. This is a relationship. This is why I like these two chapters. They really are a deep dive into the intimacy between the Most High and the people he called his chosen. Now, let me get back into this. So put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. Verse 49, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle and the fruit of thy land until thou be destroyed, or until you don't have any, or until you're broken, until I've broken you out of that, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kind, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee, or in this context, broken your spirit. Because you're watching this happen and you can't do anything about it. That destroys your spirit. That destroys your confidence. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates. Pay attention to that. He shall besiege thee in all thy gates until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustedst throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege, and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. Now, straitness is another one I had to look up using the mechanical translation, which it kind of said straightness there too. And then I looked it up using the Paleo Hebrew characters or the pictographic Hebrew characters. And basically what I kind of ascertained from straightness, meaning, where does it say here? In the siege and in the straightness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee. Siege, they're actively coming at you. They're actively shooting arrows at you. They're actively trying to break down your walls. The straightness, the picture kind of looked like someone lying down. So if you can picture the straightness, someone lying down watching you, they're actually creeping. They're waiting for you. So that it says here, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee. So the fact that they were not only just attacking them, but lying in wait for them to try to go out and run, that was stressing them out. That's why it says, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee. Verse 54, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother and toward the wife of his bosom. The man that is tender among you and very delicate, a nice guy. His eye shall be evil toward his brother and toward the wife of his bosom and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he had nothing left him in the siege. He's got nothing left. He's got no food to eat. So these people were eating their dead children, and basically at this point not sharing. Like, you're not getting any of this. Remember, if you know the history, the Romans laid siege to Jerusalem for it took them about 5 months to break through those walls. In the meantime, they had no food inside because these idiots in their civil war had burned up each other's food stores. Now, I saw a documentary that said that within the walls of Jerusalem, prior to the grain stores being burned up by these two warring factions, there was enough grain to withstand a 2-year siege. Enough grain to feed everybody in the city for 2 years. There were thousands of people that lived behind the walls of Jerusalem, or within the walls of Jerusalem. Thousands of people. They had enough grain in their stores to withstand a 2-year siege. But in their warring with each other, they burned up each other's food stores. Oh, you gonna burn up my food stores? All right, fine, we're gonna burn yours up. So they had no food by the time the siege started. Now, the way they fought back then, they weren't fighting with bullets and guns and bombs and stuff. They actually were physically fighting. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried to work out or go lift weights on an empty stomach, but if you're an athlete, you've ever tried to play sports with no calories in your system. If you can imagine, just with that point of reference, what it's like to fight in order to keep somebody from literally killing you with no calories. You can and remember, these guys fought with heavy metal. They fought with swords and spears and arrows and slings and everything. All of their weaponry was attached to their body such that they had to physically swing blows. Now, imagine trying to do that with no food on hand. So this is why when the starvation started setting in, some of these adults started eating their dead children. And in this verse, it basically says that, hey, you know what? The man who was the father of these children, at this point, he sees he got anybody left. He ain't sharing his dead child with them because he got nothing left to eat. This is how bad things have gotten. Okay. Now, remember I said Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26, prophecy turned history. This was prophesied in the days of Moses. It happened in 70 AD. Let's keep going. Let's see, verse 54, 55. So that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children, which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness. So she's going to go away in secretly and then eat them for want of all things. So they have nothing. When you want something, you desire what you don't have. For want of all things, secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemy shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God. Remember, this is a plug-in, this is an edit that originally said Yahuwah. I can show it to you right here, verse 58. If you will not safeguard to do all the words of this teaching written in this scroll, to fear this heavy and fearful title of Yahuwah, your Elohim. You know, and I'll be honest with you, I read somewhere that the people that wrote the Bible felt like it was blasphemous for anybody to say the name of the Most High, or that they were not worthy to say the name. So they edited that out. And everywhere you see the Lord thy God, that's a placeholder for what his name really is that you saw in the mechanical translation. So keep that in mind when you're studying the Bible. The Lord thy God, that's not even a name. That I used to question that when I was a kid reading the Bible. I'm like, whose name is a title? That thou mayest fear his glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God. That's like saying, instead of saying the name of your dad, whoever your dad is, or whoever your mom is, saying that thou shalt fear this name, your mama or your daddy. Don't make sense. Anyway, verse 59, then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. They're going to stick to you. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. And it shall come to pass that as the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good and to multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you and to bring you to naught or nothing. And ye shall be plucked off the land whither thou goest to possess it. So he's basically saying wherever you, even when you run from here, wherever you go to possess that land, you're going to be plucked off of that. That did happen. That happened throughout history a number of times. I won't get into it right now. But that happened on a number of occasions. Everywhere they went, they ended up getting plucked off that land and run somewhere else. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Verse 65, and among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy feet or foot have rest. But the Lord shall give thee a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shall have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, O Lord, I wish it were evening. Would God that it were even. And at the even thou shalt say, O Lord, I wish it were morning. For the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And here's the kicker, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt, or the land of bondage, again with ships. By the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now, I recommend, let me take a moment here. That's the end of Deuteronomy 28. Let me take a moment to recommend to you that you download a Bible app called the Logos Bible. Logos, Logos Bible. The reason why I say that is because the Logos Bible has cross references that allow you to jump to other instances of these various different verses. Wherever you might read in the Bible, there's a cross reference that the Logos Bible will have a hyperlink to. Now, the reason I bring that up here at verse 68 is because I've heard a misinterpretation by a lot of people that teach this Deuteronomy 28 and try to break it down, and the misrepresentation I hear a lot is that, oh, the Lord said you weren't going to see your homeland anymore. That's not what this is. If you look at the cross reference where it says, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. This was a promise. You have to get the Logos Bible. I don't have it in front of me, and I don't want to delve into it because I want to. This video could go on forever. But download the Logos Bible, Logos. Look at Deuteronomy 28 and 68. Click the jump links, the hyperlinks, and you'll see the picture come into view. This doesn't mean that they were never going to see a homeland again. What it means is that when he said, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. Basically, when he brought them out of Egypt, he made a promise to them in the desert and said, hey, listen, I'm not going to see you in that type of bondage. I'm not going to see you back in that bondage again, okay, as long as you listen to me. I'm not going to see you in that bondage, because we know that God cannot lie. But it was conditional then. He said, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, that thou shalt see it no more again. He was basically saying that I'm going to bring you back into bondage in ships, okay? Even though I told you I wasn't going to see you there, I wasn't going to send you back into bondage anymore. I'm going to send you into bondage, but this time you're going in ships, okay? And there you'll be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Now let me jump really quick here before I assign the epics here, or show you where these different things, how they fell into these different epics. Let me jump back to the mechanical translation of verse 68, because it tells a slightly different picture, and I think either translation you take is accurate. Here it says, and you will sell yourself there to your attackers for servants and for maids, but without a purchaser. And you will sell yourself. Okay, so basically, you're saying that you're going to go to bondage again. You're going to go to the land of bondage again in ships. Okay, says it right here. And Yahuwah will make you turn back to Mitzrayim. That's the Hebrew word for Egypt, which represents the land of bondage, in ships. By the road when I will say to you, you will not continue to see her. You won't continue to see that bondage. And you will sell yourself there to your attackers for servants and for maids, but without a purchaser. So now, if we take the transatlantic slave trade, and I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but if we take the transatlantic slave trade, there are two narratives that are both accurate, and both of them fit the mechanical translation as well as the modern translation. There you'll be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Okay, if you look at the original Hebrew, it says you'll sell yourselves. Now, if we remember our history class in school, grade school, whatever, we know that the original 20-something slaves that came over at Point Comfort in 1619 came over as indentured servants. Now, when you're going somewhere as an indentured servant, you basically are selling your services. This says here, you're going to go there and sell yourself for slaves, bondmen and bondwomen, but no man will buy you. So it's basically, hey, you're here now. No, we ain't buying you nothing. You're here. This is home for you. And you're going to work on these lands till you die. All right? You're going to be buried on these lands you're working. That shows up in Leviticus 26, which I'm about to jump into in a few minutes. So that's that narrative matches what's in the mechanical translation of Deuteronomy 28 and 68. Now, if you look at this one, it says, there you'll be sold into your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. We know that in the ancient times, if you were captured in battle, if there was a war or something, you were captured and taken away into slavery, somebody could come from your homeland or from somewhere else and buy your bondage. They could buy your freedom. They could buy your freedom and buy you out of slavery. There was a price there. So that actually applies here too, because here these slaves, even though they started out as indentured servants, we know that as the slave trade progressed, these people were captured and brought over as captives and sold as soon as they got off the ship, okay? But there was nobody to come and buy their freedom back. Nobody came from what are modern-day Ghana, Benin, Togo, Nigeria. Nobody came from those places and said, hey, I want to buy back these people. And that's a story in and of itself for a whole different day. I mean, there was some tribal stuff. I won't even get into that. That's something that's completely for another study at some time in the future. But anyway, I thought that was worth noting. Those two different. So when you read the mechanical translation, you'll see that the picture's a little different. You go there and sell yourselves as bondmen and bondwomen, Which one's correct? I don't know. Remember, ancient Hebrew thought was different than our modern thought. So they both could very well mean the same thing, that you were sold into slavery. Either way, they were sold into slavery, because as soon as you were captured and brought over and got off the ship, somebody bought you as their personal property. Anyway, so that is Deuteronomy 28. Now, we talked about these epics, and these epics were happening. Let's see. Epic 1 was during the siege of Jerusalem. I took some notes. Epic 2 was while still in their homeland, and Epic 3 was, this is post-war while still in the homeland. Epic 3 was after leaving their homeland and going into exile, and in some cases ongoing. And Epic 4 had to do with the slave trade and during slavery and post-slavery, and in some cases ongoing. Let's break this down really quick, and I'll jump over to Leviticus, read through that. I'll breeze through Leviticus because it's almost identical with some slight variations, and then we'll wrap this up. So, guys, I want to tell you, thank you for hanging in there. If you're still listening and or watching this video at this point, I appreciate you hanging in there. This is rich. This is rich content. Not easy to digest. But yet it's rich content, and it's going to do you good. It's going to do you good once you understand the picture that these two chapters of the Bible paint. Now, Epic 1, during the siege, we can start at verse 25 and verse 26. All right? Verse 25, the Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine eyes. Thou shalt go out one way against them and flee 7 ways before them. That happened during the siege of Jerusalem. Okay? Verse 26, and thy carcass shall be meat unto all the fowls of the air. Nobody was going from behind those walls to go and pick up their dead and bury them. So the vultures and raptors or whatever, that the scavengers of the air, they came and it was like, okay, lunchtime. This happened. He promised all of this. This is why I say this was prophecy turned history. Everything he told them in the Sinai desert that would happen to them if they disobeyed or became extremely disobedient, those are the things that happened. Okay, and it's funny, I was having it as an aside. I was having a conversation with my wife earlier today, and I said, listen, people today think that they're sinning. The Israelites today think they have nothing on these people back then. These people were wicked on purpose. And the example of disobedience I gave is, example 1, you have a child, and you tell the child, stop running around this house, because if you don't stop, you're going to run into something and break an expensive piece of my crystal. And when you run into something and break my crystal, when I ask you to stop running around, we're going to have a problem. The kid, as soon as the parent leaves, the kid runs around, I want to have fun, boom, boom, clang, they break something. That kid was disobedient, but they didn't mean to break that glass, okay? They didn't mean to break it. That was a consequence of their being disobedient, because the parent told them this is probably going to happen if you don't stop running around this house. So they got to get dealt with. But their getting dealt with is going to be a little different than example 2. In example 2, you got a child that you said, stop running around this house, because if you don't, you're going to break my expensive crystal, and I don't want my crystal broken. And that child looking at that crystal saying, well, you know what? If I break the crystal, you know what, I'm gonna take care of that crystal problem. That way I can run around this house and not have to worry about knocking your crystal over. And that child takes the crystal outside and throws it in the trash can. That was those ancient Israelites. That's how wicked they were. They were wicked on purpose. Okay, now we've gotten rid of the crystal. We can run around all we want now. That was the contrast of the ancient Israelites as opposed to the Israelites today. The Israelites today, we got disobedience, but the disobedience is almost by accident as compared to the original Israel, not original, ancient. The ancient Israelites were disobedient on purpose. They were example 2. They were like, let me get rid of this crystal, and then I can run around all I want. You ain't got to worry about it breaking. Boom, now it's out the way. Hold that. So this is why they got dealt with the way that they got dealt with, and this is why he said, upon thy seed, until a distant time. This is why we still got some of these things going on that I'm going to show you in a minute. Getting back to Epic 1 during the siege, verses 31, 33, 34, and 35. Verse 31, thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes. The Romans did that. The walls of Jerusalem were their security, but all of the food growing and cattle raising happened outside the walls. Within the walls, they had water. They had access to clean water. They had aqueducts, whatever. They have water that came into the city. So they didn't have a problem getting water. but the food was grown outside the city. So the Romans came and they were like, okay, look, if you studied how the Romans conducted war, they always put a wall around their enemies' walls and basically cut off all avenues of escape. Hey, you want to escape, you got to come through us now. We got the walls up, okay? And by the way, since we're out here, we got you you're behind those walls, and we got you boxed in with ours. We're gonna eat up everything you growing out here. That's how they did what they did. They were very efficient soldiers. They were efficient. That was an efficient war machine, one of the most efficient of all time, believe it or not. Okay. Now that was verse 33. Verse 31. We know that they killed their cattle and ate it. I mean, they basically fed their soldiers with it. Verse 33. This is during the siege. The fruit of thy land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up. That happened during the siege. 34. Thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine own eyes, which thou shalt see. They're looking over these walls and watching these foreigners eat up their stuff. And they're like, man, we hungry in here. We can't get out here to get it. That happened. Verse 35. The Lord shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs with a sore botch that cannot be healed from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. You know what? When you got death going on and you're not getting any food, the next thing that happens is disease. That's what started happening behind the walls of that city. It was an awful place. You got to read the account of what happened during those wars, and particularly the Battle of Jerusalem, because there are several accounts of where the Roman generals pleaded with them, hey, look, y'all stop. Y'all in bad shape, man. We don't want to fight y'all. Just give up. But they would not give up. They would not give up. Now, jump ahead to verse 45 and 45, 46. 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, on through 57. Okay, verse 45. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee and shall pursue thee. That happened during the siege, of course. 46. And they shall be upon thee for a sign and a wonder upon thy seed forever. Okay, I marked that down. That was kind of, residual, or that kind of went along with it. Verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. They didn't understand Latin. They understood Greek and Hebrew. They understood Egyptian. They didn't understand Latin. Latin is what the Romans spoke. And the Romans moved quickly. They were swift. They were swift combatants. They had an engine. That thing was an engine. That was an earlier version of I won't even say it. I'll say it. That was an earlier version of Blitzkrieg. They were quick. They were very quick. Okay. Not celebrating Adolf Hitler, but listen, if you're a military historian, you know how swift even the Nazi soldiers moved. So the Romans kind of were the original versions of that with their speed of attack. Verse 49. Okay, we did that. Verse 50. A nation of a fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. They didn't care. They were like, you behind those walls, you dead. We don't care about your old or your young. And they were fierce. They wore these helmets that covered it. They were mean looking jokers. Okay. 51. Okay, 51. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle. We know that happened. You guys can kind of read through that on your own. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, and until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trusted, throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord has given you. Basically, they, in retaliation for something, in retaliation for the Yahudim going to Rome and setting some stuff on fire and killing some people, he sent 3 legions into the Judean province, or the land of Judah, modern day Israel. And they started from the northern border and burned and destroyed their way all the way south until they got to the walls of Jerusalem. And when they laid siege to Jerusalem, they brought down those high and mighty walls that they trusted in. They were like, hey, nobody will ever break through these walls. They trusted in those walls. Rome broke through them. So that's that verse. Okay. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons. We talked about that. They were so hungry behind those walls from the starvation that they began eating their children that had died. Okay. Not cannibalism from the standpoint that they were killing them to eat them. It's just that when they died, they had nothing else to eat. Nobody could eat. So, of course, when you're starving, the children are typically the first ones to die. They just ate their children. Rough stuff. 55. Okay, we read that. 56, a tender and delicate woman. 57, to her young. So she's eating her children. She's sneaking off somewhere eating so nobody would see her. Okay. Otherwise, if they saw her eating it, they probably take it from her. This was a bad time. It was a very, very bad time. You got to read the history. If you want to find it, if you find it interesting, you got to read some books. There's one of them is the Wars of the Jews, I think, or the Wars of the Jews by Flavius Josephus is one of the authors. There was another one called the Sieges of Jerusalem and Masada. I read that one. Very interesting, fascinating book. I'm a military historian, a fan of military history, I should say. I always have been. So all of these things through verse 57 happened during the siege. Okay, and then you can jump 59, 60, 61, 63, 64. All of those things happened during the siege. 66 and 67, thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and have no assurances of thy life. They lost all of that. Now you're going to see some of these same themes as we move on. So that was Epic 1. Epic 2 is the city's been destroyed, the country's been conquered completely, and some people remained in their homeland after the war. Verses 16 through 24. Let's jump back up here. Verse 16 through 24. This is Epic 2. While in the homeland post-war. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body. You can go right through verses 24. I'm not going to reread that stuff. Shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. Listen, the Romans burned up the land. When they started it in the northern border, they would destroy, they killed those fighters, and they burned the cities up. They killed men, women, and child. They didn't care. And they burned up those cities. They burned up those crops. They burned up those fields. They kept the cattle. They slaughtered the cattle so they have meat for their troops. They took whatever food they wanted. They burned the fields up after that. They were like, we're going to make sure you guys don't use this again. And so we know what happens when you set if you set a forest fire and it never rains again, how long before that forest turns into dust? How long before it turns into dust? You need rain. Now it said here, what verse is it? He was going to make the rain, the heaven, verse 23, and thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron, hard ground. You can't grow anything in it. The heaven above thee be as brass. It's going to be hot, heat. You get no cool there, no cloud cover. The Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. This is what happened. In the land even after the siege. Okay, verses 27, 28, 31, 32, 33, some of those are redundant. Verse 27, 28, the Lord shall smite thee with the botch of Egypt, with the emerods, with the scab, with the itch. There was sickness and disease in the land after the siege. This is what happens when not only were you attacked, not only were you damaged physically from the fight, from running, from living in the elements, from living in exposure. Now you got no shelter, you got no food, no medicine, no balm. You know, we know that these weren't they weren't like modern day doctors where they had everything that they made for medicine came from the earth. So now you got no medicine to put on these scabs and stuff. They're bad shape. So you can read through verses 26, 28, 31, 32, 34, 35, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 48, 50, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, and 67. All those cover Epoch 2. And what I'll do, guys, I'm reading right here, but I'm going to pop it. By the time you see this, I'll have a slide up or maybe a title screen that shows you these scriptures so you can, these verses, so you can pause and write them down and go back and study them on your own. Epic 2, I just gave you the verses for Epic 2. Epic 2 in their homeland post-war. Epic 3, after leaving their homeland and going into exile, even to ongoing. When I say ongoing, I mean like even through to today or at least ongoing into the future. Verse 27, the scab we talked about. 28, 29, 30. I'm sorry, 28, 29, 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36. So basically 33 through 39. And this will be on that title screen so you guys can pause it, write those down, and read the scripture for yourself and study it and see exactly how these things happened, could have happened after or in the exile. Verse 39, thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worm shall eat them. See, at this time, you're exiled from your homeland, and you're trying to do all of the things that you knew how to do before to reestablish yourself as at least having some type of viability. But he says, nope. I'm not going to let you prosper even when you leave. I'm plucking you off the land that I gave your fathers. Now, wherever you're going, I'm gonna make sure you're not gonna prosper there either. I'm gonna see to it until thou be destroyed or broken, until I've broken that haughty spirit, that haughty spirit of disobedience, until I've broken it. So read those things, guys. I've given you those scriptures. Continuing on, 41, 42, and then 44 through 46. Let's see, 44 through 46. This is in exile. He shall lend to thee. Let's see, the stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high. The immigrant. So we know that that these folks that came from Europe down into Africa and immigrated there, they at one time when the people had the control of their own land, these people were just visitors. They were immigrants. But what happened was it flipped. He promised them. He said that immigrant that's in above you, he's going to get up high above you. And you, instead of you lending to him, instead of him coming to you when he needs something, you're going to go to him when you need something. Welfare. I mean, come on. Let's just keep it real. Let's take the gloves off and have a real conversation. This stuff happened, and it's continuing on. There's a brother by the name of Ron Dalton Jr., Hebrews to Negroes. He's got like 4 books. He did 2 movies, Hebrews to Negroes 1, Wake Up Black America, Hebrews to Negroes 2, Revelation, Age of Awakening. He's covering this stuff. He's got a documentary series now called The Curses of Israel. This stuff is talked about in there. I've seen them. I loved it. Some of the brothers in there, they gave you some mathematics. They showed you how this stuff is mathematically accurate in these scriptures. So this stuff really happened and it continued on to the future. Let's take a look at verses 61, 62, 64. This is Epoch 3 we're talking about, where after they left their homeland and they were in exile. Verse 61, let's jump there. Let's see. Also, every sickness and every plague which is not written in the book of this law, then will the Lord bring upon thee until thou be destroyed or broken. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude. Remember, if you go back to Genesis, I believe it's the 12th chapter, 14th chapter. Let me just take a look really quick here. Hang on one second. Let me pull my reference. This was the Abraham's dream. And I'm doing this, I got the screen frozen here, but I want to look it up so I'm not just breezing through this on here. I want to say it's the 15th chapter. Let me just go here for just a minute. Genesis, darn it, hang on a second. Genesis, the 15th chapter, let's see, 12. Let's see. That's not the one. That's not the one. But guys, you're gonna have to maybe drop it in the comments or whatever. I can't remember exactly the verse, but he promised Abraham that he was gonna be the father of many nations, and that his seed would number like the stars of the sky. They'd be like countless. So here he goes back and he says, you know what, though you were great in number one time, I'm gonna make your number small. Okay, look at where, if you look at where the Israelites are in every country they've been driven into, they're typically the minority. Hello, the minority. Okay, so this stuff is powerful stuff. This is powerful stuff. Now I know some of you are gonna say, hey, you know what? There's more. You're talking about these different. This is talking about the lands where they were scattered. The lands where they were scattered. Okay, let's get off of this. That's verse 66, 67. In the morning, and thy life shall hang in doubt before 66. Thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and have none assurance of thy life. I could go down a list of names of people who had no assurance. Let me get off of that. Because that. All right, let me leave that alone. Because that'll get me upset. I'm trying to keep it cool here for this. This is powerful stuff, people. This is powerful stuff. So now, Epoch 4 is transatlantic slave trade. It starts here at verse 29. I got verse 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 36, 37, 41, 43, 44, 45, 46, 48, 49, 50, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65 on through 68. That's a transatlantic slave trade. That's got it all. Let me jump into 45. Where's that one? Let's see. No, you know what? Let's go all the way back to verse 29. Let's see. Verse 29. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness, and thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Who came to save the slaves? Our ancestors. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. How often did that happen? I bought you. Okay, yeah, this is your wife. This is your wife to the extent that you're going to bear children so that I got some fresh slaves coming up. But don't get it twisted. If I want this, I'm rolling out to the quarters when the mistress of the house is asleep, and I'm gonna do what I want to do out there. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. That happened during slavery. Did that not happen during slavery? You can go through those verses I just listed, but again, thou shalt be carried to Egypt again in ships. In ships. And the Lord shall bring thee to Egypt again in with ships. Okay? And there you'll be sold into your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. That's the transatlantic slave trade. All right? So that was Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. Now I'm going to breeze through Leviticus 26 and just show you some more reference of which epochs these different scriptures apply to. Remember, this is prophecy turned history. All of this stuff happened. This is prophecy turned history. All right, Leviticus 26. I'm not going to belabor this. I'm going to run through this really quick. He starts off giving them a commandment. This is how this thing started. Ye shall make no idols nor graven image, neither rear you up a standing image, neither shall you set up any image of stone in your land to bow down unto it. For I am the Lord your God. You shall keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord. If you walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them, then I will give you rain in due season, and the land shall yield her increase. These are the blessings. All of the blessings here in Leviticus 26. They happen in verses. So he gives them a charge. Leviticus 26 and 1 through 3 is the charge. Make no idols and bow down to them. Keep my Sabbaths, that day of rest, and walk in my statutes and keep my commandments and do them. That was the charge. Okay. The blessings take place in verses 4 through 12. These are the blessings he's going to give them in response to keeping the charge. Then will I give you rain in due season, and your land shall yield her increase, and the trees of the field shall yield their fruit. And your threshing holes shall reach unto the vintage. And your threshing, I should say, shall reach into the vintage, meaning the things that you harvest, wherever you're storing them, it's going to reach all the way up to the top. And the vintage shall reach unto the sowing time, meaning you're going to have so much food that it's going to last you until the next season when you start. So in other words, the vintage is the top. That's the top. That's what vintage here means. The vintage shall last until the sowing time. So you're not even going to knock down through the top of your food stores until it's time to plant the next season. That's how much food I'm going to give you. Okay? And I will give peace in the land, and you will lie down, and nobody will make you afraid. And I will rid evil beasts out of your land. Neither shall the sword go through your land. I'm not going to have any lions, any tigers, any bears, lions, tigers, and bears. You know what I'm saying? Remember, that land was fertile and with woods and forests and stuff at one time. Okay? Well, you're in Africa. What evil beasts are in Israel today? Are there any lions walking around in Israel today in the wilderness? No. There's no forest there. Where are the forests? So he basically, remember, this was in Africa. It is, not was. This is in Africa. That's the biggest. That is where I think people get this whole thing twisted because of this modern term called Middle East. Egypt and Israel are in Africa. So the same thing you had if you had lions and wildlife that are able to rend a man and tear him into two, running around in different parts of Africa, Northeast Africa, Central Africa, that stuff happened that same stuff was there. This is why he outlines here, no evil beast. I'll rid the evil beast out of your land. Neither shall the sword go through your land. And you'll chase your enemies, and they'll fall before you by the sword. And 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to a flight. And your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. For I will have respect unto you, and make you fruitful, and multiply you, and establish my covenant with you. And ye shall eat old store, and bring forth the old because of the new. So this is how much food you're going to have. You bring forth the old because of the new. So in other words, you're going to be throwing out some of the old stuff because you got no place for the new stuff. This is how much food I'm going to give you. And I will set my tabernacle among you, and my soul shall not abhor you. That's verse 11, or hate you. And I will walk among you and will be your God, and you shall be my people. I am the Lord your God, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, that you should not be their bondmen. In other words, I brought you out. I didn't want you working for them. I chose you. If I'm a king, if I'm royal in the heavens, and I chose you, that makes you regal. What you look like working for somebody else that ain't you? I am the Lord your God, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, that you should not be their bondmen. And I have broken the bands of your yoke and made you go upright. Remember back then, those yokes were so heavy, you couldn't even walk straight with them on. You bending over. That's how much weight they had about their neck. Okay? Those were the blessings. Verses 4 through 12. All right? Verses 4 through 12. Leviticus 26 is where we are. The charge happened in verses 1 through 3. The charge, do these things. That's the charge. Verses 4 through 12, this is your reward that's built into doing the things that I ask you to do in the charge. All right? But then, verses 12. Okay, verse 13 is the reason. Verse 13 is the reason that he gave them that charge. All right? I am the Lord your God, which brought you forth out of the land of Egypt, that you should not be their bondmen. That's the reason why he did it. Okay? All right? That's the reason why he did it, and that's the reason why he gave them the charge in verses 1 through 3. Now, verses 16 through, that was 13. Okay? 14 and 15 is the warning. But if you will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, and if you shall despise my statutes, or if your soul abhor my judgments, hate my judgments. I just gave you example 2 of the bad kid. Okay, a few minutes ago, I gave you example 2 of the bad kid. If your soul abhor my judgments, who you think he telling to do this stuff? I ain't doing that. So that you will not do all my commandments, but you break my covenant, my agreement that I have with your forefathers, with Abraham. If you break that covenant, I will also do this unto you. And I will even appoint over you terror, consumption, and the burning ague that shall consume the eyes and cause sorrow of heart. And ye shall sow your seed in vain, for your enemies shall eat it. You're going to plant in vain. Whatever you planting, you're not even going to get to eat. Your enemy's going to come eat it, and you're going to watch them. That's what he's saying there. So verses 16 through 39 are the curses. Let's keep going. Or the annoyances as it's listed in the mechanical translation. I put this here to annoy you. Since you annoyed me, I'm gonna show you what annoyance looks like. I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna tell. I was gonna share a story with you, but I'll save that story for another day. Because you can't talk about this is a true story for a weekend I spent at my aunt's house when I was younger, and we kept going in and out. She worked third shift. And we kept going in and out and slamming the door and running and playing loud where she couldn't get no sleep. I ain't gonna tell you what she did in response. Because today people are, oh my God, it's child abuse. No. We turned out all right. All of us turned out all right. And then none of us hate parents, aunt, none of that. We all turned out all right. Okay? But I'm not gonna share that story. Anyway, since you annoyed me, I'm gonna give you these annoyances, is what the Lord said here. Okay? All right. So verses 16 through 39 are the curses, all right, or annoyances. All right, 17, I will set my face against you, and ye shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall reign over you, and ye shall flee when nobody's even chasing you. And if you will not, for all this, hearken unto me, and after all of that, basically is what he's saying, if you still won't hearken unto me, then will I punish you 7 times more for your sins, and I will break the pride of your power. This is why I like Leviticus 26 and why you can't just stop at Deuteronomy 28. A lot of people know about Deuteronomy 28, but they haven't found that gem, which is Leviticus 26, because they complement each other. Okay, I will break the pride of your power and will make your heaven as iron and your earth as brass. We've heard that. And your strength shall be spent in vain, for your land shall not yield her increase, neither shall the trees of the land yield their fruits. So you're doing all of that work in planting season and get nothing for it. And if you walk contrary unto me and will not hearken unto me, I will bring 7 times more plagues upon you according to your sins. Whew, that's rough. 7 times more plagues upon you according to your sins. For every one sin you get, you're going to get 7 times the punishment for that. For every single sin. That's rough. I will also send wild beasts among you, which shall rob you of your children and destroy your cattle and make you few in number, and your highways shall be desolate. And if you will not be reformed by me by these things, even then, but will walk contrary unto me, then will I also walk contrary unto you, and will punish you yet 7 times more for your sins. And I will bring a sword upon you that shall avenge the quarrel of my covenant. And when you are gathered together within your cities, I will send the pestilence or disease among you, and ye shall be delivered into the hand of the enemy. And when I have broken the staff of your bread, 10 women shall bake your bread in one oven, and they shall deliver you your bread again by weight or ration, and ye shall eat and not be satisfied. And if you will not for all this hearken unto me, but still walk contrary unto me, then will I walk contrary unto you also in fury, and I, even I, will chastise you 7 times for your sins. And ye shall eat the flesh of your sons, and the flesh of your daughters shall ye eat. That happened in the siege. And I will destroy your high places and cut down your images and cast your carcasses upon the carcasses of your idols, and my soul shall abhor you. And I will make your cities waste and bring your sanctuaries unto desolation, and I will not smell the savor of your sweet odors, and I will bring the land into desolation, and your enemies which dwell therein shall be astonished at it. See, this is what I was telling you guys. I'm going to pause right here. This is what I was saying, guys. That land of Judah, that land of Israel, used to be way more beautiful than it is. Even today, it looks desolate by comparison. Now, you got cities built up, but if you look at the city as a whole, if you look at that land as a whole by comparison to what it used to look like, you can imagine that it looked like West Africa. You can imagine. It looked like West Africa. It looked like North America. It looked like Brazil. It was lush. It had to be. That was a vaunted piece of territory, a vaunted piece of land. It didn't look brown like it does today. I mean, you're talking about the difference between the Florida Everglades and the Phoenix or Tempe, Arizona area. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, let me get back to that. Okay. And your land shall be desolate and your cities waste. Verse 34, then shall the land enjoy her Sabbaths as long as it lieth desolate, and you be in your enemies' lands. Even then shall the land rest and enjoy her Sabbaths. See, you're supposed to, when you take that Sabbath day, he gave them that Sabbath as a day of rest. They weren't supposed to work. They were supposed to rest themselves, but it was also so that the land got a break. So that the land could rest. You guys, if you watched another video, it was my video I did talking about Bill Gates and some, what did I say? It was called global warming and some other stuff. In that video, I said that the earth is a living organism. The earth is a living organism. Drop a seed in it and it'll give you fruit back. The earth is a living organism. But not only did he want us to rest, he wanted the earth to have a Sabbath. This is why he said, once you're off this land, then your land going to enjoy your Sabbaths. So they were working on the Sabbath. They were working on this. They were just breaking all the rules. Verse 35, as long as it lieth desolate, it shall rest, because it did not rest in your Sabbaths when you dwelt upon it. And upon them that are left alive of you, remember I said that Epoch 3 or Epoch 2 was people that stayed in the land after the siege. And upon them that are left alive of you, verse 36, I will send a faintness into their hearts in the land of their enemies. Okay, that's Epoch 2 and Epoch 3. And the sound of a shaken leaf shall chase them, and they shall flee as fleeing from a sword, and they shall fall when none pursueth. And they shall fall one upon another, as it were before a sword, when none pursueth. And ye shall have no power to stand before your enemies. No power to stand before your enemies. In the land of your enemies, you'll have no power to stand before your enemies. These are the curses of Israel, the annoyances. No power to stand before your enemies. I'm not even going to tell you, y'all can apply that to any, the first thing that came to your mind is the right thing. The first thing that came to your mind when you heard that, no power to stand before your enemies on their soil. The first thing that came to your mind when you heard that is the right thing. That's a good example. I don't even have to give one. And ye shall perish among the heathen, and the land of your enemies shall eat you up. Meaning, basically, you're going to die on land that ain't yours and be buried there. That's what it means when it says, in the land of your enemies shall eat you up. And they that are left of you shall pine away in their iniquity in your enemies' lands. And also in the iniquities of their fathers shall they pine away with them, singing sad songs while you picking cotton. Singing sad. I'm talking about my own ancestors. So for those of y'all that maybe get the little bit, or, by that, I'm talking about my own ancestors. My grandmother picked cotton. Her mother picked cotton. Her mother and father picked it. Their parents picked it. Pining away in the land of your enemies. If they shall confess their iniquity, now that was the curses in verses 16 through 39. Now, there are conditions for restoration. That's verses 40 and 41. If they shall confess their iniquity and the iniquity of their fathers with their trespass, which they trespassed against me, and that also they have walked contrary unto me, and that I also have walked contrary unto them, and have brought them into the land of their enemies, if then their uncircumcised hearts be humbled, and then they accept the punishment of their iniquity, those are the conditions. Here comes the promise of redemption, verses 42 to 45. Then will I remember my covenant with Jacob, and also my covenant with Isaac, and also my covenant or agreement with Abraham will I remember. And I will remember the land of Israel. The land also shall be left of them, and shall enjoy her Sabbaths, while she lieth desolate without them, and they shall accept of the punishment of their iniquity, because they despise my judgments, and because their soul abhorred my statutes. If you ain't on your land anymore and you're a captive on another land, you got no choice but to accept the punishment of that iniquity. You got no choice. Verse 44, and yet for all of that, when they be in the land of their enemies, I will not cast them away, neither will I abhor them, to destroy them utterly, and to break my covenant with them. For I am the Lord their God. You know what that means. We don't have to go back to the mechanical. But I will for their sakes remember the covenant of their ancestors, whom I brought forth out of the land of bondage, the land of Egypt, in the sight of the heathen, that I might be their God. I am the Lord. These are the statutes and judgments and laws which the Lord made between him and the children of Israel in Mount Sinai by the hand of Moses. That's the end of Leviticus 26. So, and I think it's important here that he highlighted how he brought the children of Israel out of the land of bondage, or the land of Egypt, the first time. He said here, whom I brought forth out of the land of Egypt in the sight of the heathen. So he did it, and they had to watch their workers, their slaves, their chattel property. They watched them leave. Okay? I think it's important that he highlighted that. He said, I did it in the sight of the heathen, that I might be their God, and show them, basically, they're mine. They're mine. They're mine. When Moses said, who do I tell them sent me? Now, the English Bible says, tell them I am sent you. But when you look that up in the mechanical translation, it said, tell them I do exist sent you. I do exist. Let me look that up really quick for you guys. I'm done reading this. I am. Let's see. I am. All right. Moses, let's find this. Okay, verse 14. I am. All right, where is it? Verse 14. And God said unto Moses said, let's see, verse 13. And Moses said unto God, behold, when I come, this is a bit of an aside. Moses said unto God, behold, when I come into the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, the God of your fathers has sent me unto you, and they shall say to me, what is his name? And what shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, now that is Exodus 3 and 14. Now watch this. This is why you want to get into this mechanical translation here. Exodus 3 and 14. Let's go back to the top. Exodus 3 and let's go to 14. Hang on a second. Maybe I got the wrong one. Hang on. Exodus 3. I know this is the third chapter of Exodus. Yeah, Exodus 3rd chapter, 14th verse. Okay, 13th and 14th verse. Exodus 3rd chapter. There it is. And Moshe said unto Elohim, Look, I am coming to the sons of Yisrael, and I will say to them, Elohim of your fathers had sent me to you. And they will say to me, What is his title? What will I say to them? And Elohim said to Moshe, I will exist, which I will exist. And he said, In this way you will say to the sons of Yisrael, Eye had sent me unto you. That's interesting. So I am that I am versus I will exist. Or I do exist. I will exist. I do exist. I will exist. Meaning, when you already exist and you say I will exist, what does that mean? That means you ain't going nowhere. You ain't been nowhere and you ain't going nowhere. I exist. I exist in all places. I exist. I don't care where you live. If you live in Los Angeles and you're listening to this right now, your body's in Los Angeles, but you exist in Australia. What do I mean? Somebody in Australia can pull up an image of you or be told, hey, there's this person in LA named John Doe. Here's his picture on Facebook. And guess what? Now you exist in Australia, even though your body ain't there. It's a little bit too deep for some. I'm going to pull up off of that. But anyway, listen, I am going to get ready to wrap this up. I can show you here again, and I'm going to list these. Leviticus 26, Epic 1 is the siege, verses 16, 17, verses 26, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, and 33. Go back and read those. That is Epic 1 or the siege. Verse 16 of Leviticus. Let me go back here. Leviticus 26. Let's get rid of this. Okay, and let's close this. And let's get rid of that. Come on, where you going? All right. All right, so I don't know how to work this software. I thought I did. Let's get rid of the search. Come on, y'all. Work with me here. Okay. All right. There we go. Right there. Boom. All right. Reading is fundamental, right? Seeing is fundamental. Leviticus 26. We're wrapping up, guys. Leviticus 26, verse 16. These things happened during the siege. Appointed terror over you and consumption, and you'll sow your seed in vain, for your enemies will eat it up. That happened during the siege. That also happened in exile. It happened in slavery. That happened across all four epics. Verse 16. 17, I will set my face against you, and you'll be slain before your enemies. That happened in my God, that's happened across all of those epics. So listen, let me list them. I just listed Epic 1 for you. Verse 16 and 17, 26, 28 through 32, 20 and verses 28 through 33. I'll list them on the screen there for you. Epic 2, Leviticus verses 16 through 22, and then 24, 25, 28, and 33 and 34. Those verses apply to Epic 2. Epic 3, after leaving the homeland and going in exile, Epic 3 is verses 16 through 22, 24, 25, 28, 33, 34, 36 through 39, and then 43 through 45. Those are the Leviticus 26 verses that apply to Epic 3. And then finally Epic 4, which is transatlantic slavery, during slavery, post-slavery, and ongoing. Leviticus 26, you got verses 16 through 19, verses 24, 25, 28, 36 through 39, and 44 and 45. Those things happen. Those verses apply to, I would call modern times. Transatlantic slave trade through slavery, and then post-slavery, and then ongoing. And I'm talking slavery, I'm talking not just North America, but South America. We know the transatlantic slave trade carried slaves from coast of West Africa to the Caribbean, North America, and South America. So anyway, so guys, that's it. I mean, in summary, I pretty much have finished that up for you guys. I've read the chapters of Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26. And so that ends the reading portion of this. And I'm going to do a wrap up here. And then thank you guys for watching. All right, guys, that's pretty much it for this video. Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26, which is pretty much a look at history and had nothing to do with theology. I told you guys in the beginning, you saw at the beginning of the PowerPoint presentation, that this was not going to be a theological study. Theology is the study of religion. This had nothing to do with religion. I wanted to illustrate and highlight that the Bible, I say this a lot. I say this a lot when I'm talking with friends, when I'm hanging out with the fellas and we're talking about religion, even though this had nothing to do with religion. I always say that the Bible itself is three things. It is history, it is code of conduct, and it's prophecy. All right? Within those two chapters, you saw the complete span. You saw all of those things. You saw the history, and Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26, I told you before, those are what I like to call history that became prophecy. He made a promise thousands of years ago and said that these are the good things out that will happen for you. This is the blessing that's built into following the instructions. And if you break away from the instructions, this is what comes with your breaking away from these instructions. So, and that happened. Those things happened. I broke it down into 4 epics for you. Epic 1, the siege of Jerusalem. It even mentions in Deuteronomy 28 certain things that would happen during the siege or in the siege, as is written in Deuteronomy 28. Epic 2 was after the fall of Judah, but with some of the Judeans or Yahudim hanging around and staying in their homeland, those that weren't driven out or killed or captured and carried away as slaves. You still had to have people there that worked, because the Romans weren't going to do it right. I mean, they were pretty much soldiers and politicians, so they weren't about to do the work that needed to be that needed to be done. They still stayed in that country. They didn't come in there and just destroy Jerusalem and go away. I mean, remember, 3 years after the fall of Jerusalem, you had the siege at Masada. So they were still in operation, and they still needed some people to do some work. But those people at that point were pretty much not self-governed anymore. They were slaves. So Epic 2, hanging around in the homeland after the fall of the country. Epic 3, in exile, after having left the homeland, being in exile in other places, other lands, being scattered to the 4 corners. And some of those things in Epic 3 were continued through to this day. And then Epic 4, which started with the transatlantic slave trade and carried over into slavery, carried into post-slavery, and a lot of those things that have even carried the residual effects of those annoyances, as is stated in the mechanical translation, those annoyances that have carried over even to 2020. So, guys, listen, the Bible, like I said, 3 things. History of a people, code of conduct for a people, because those laws were given to Moses for the children of Israel. Now, the rest of the world has adopted them to some degree, to a greater or lesser degree, but those were rules that were given from the Most High to Moses at Mount Sinai, okay, for the children of Israel. So, prophecy of a people, code of conduct for a people, and, or I should say, history of a people, code of conduct for a people, and prophecy for a people. All right? Past, present, and future. Now, Deuteronomy 28, bleak, dark, almost looks like forever until you read the mechanical translation, and I encourage you guys to bookmark that page. If you get a chance, read some of Jeff Benner's books. He's a good author. He's a great author. He's a Jewish teacher, instructor, whatever, author. I don't know if he's a teacher or not. Well, yeah, he is a teacher. I've seen some of his videos. So I'm not saying that he's a school teacher, but he does teach some of this material with regards to ancient Hebrew. But Fantastic mind, done some great research, great work. So I appreciate Jeff Bennett. If you see this video, thank you for the work you've done. It's much appreciated, much appreciated. So it's given me a greater appreciation for the history of my ancestors. Now I know, and in closing and summarizing, I know that may rub some people the wrong way, because that may leave the question of, well, if you guys are saying you're the Israelites, then who are these people, or who are we, or whatever. This video wasn't to get into that. That's not even what I'm about. I don't have time for that, really, to be honest. Who has time for that? There's a lot of prophecy concerning the Israelites, and the Israelites, what would happen to them in the land of their captivity. And there's a lot of prophecy. I'm not going to get into it. If you guys want to do a deep dive into that, I'd like to recommend some videos. Any of the Hidden Hebrews videos on YouTube right now, and also on Patreon by Benaya Israel, and any of the teachings by, there's a guy out of the UK that I love his videos. I hope I get to meet him one day and shake his hand, bump this quarantine stuff, shake his hand, bump this social distancing, shake his hand. Okay, the guy that does Thoughts, Camera, Action. If you're watching this video, man, you are one of my favorite YouTubers. I love your teaching. I love your approach. I love your passion for the subject matter, and I love how cool and laid back you are. So Thoughts, Camera, Action. Subscribe to that dude. And last but certainly not least, Ron Dalton Jr. with his Hebrews to Negroes books and movies, and he's got a documentary series out now that you can rent on Vimeo on demand called The Curses of Israel. And as of 5/10/20, which is today's date, I saw a video where he's actually doing pre-orders. So I don't know when it is that you guys will be looking at this video, but by the time you're watching this video, it may be out on DVD or whatever, and you can order it from his website, www.thenegronetwork.com, and I'll put links in the description, and put the website on the screen there for you guys to see. Thank you guys for watching. I'd love to go on, but as you can see, the sclera of my eyes was white when I started this video, and now it's red. So I kind of ate like a college kid today, because I thought this was going to be quick, and that PowerPoint thing took so long, it was just painful. So I ran to the store and got some snacks, and so I basically had snacks for dinner. So I'm going to wrap this up, and thank you guys for watching. Listen, this has been another episode of Maddie's Rap. I'm your host, author Matt D. Talford. If you haven't done so already, please give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified of when I upload a new video, hit the notification bell. And last but not least, hey, if you like this shirt, 400 years, let me know. You can get it at my website, www.talfordarts.com. It's available in white and black, in from sizes from small to 3X. And prayers too for the small business people in this country that are suffering right now with these statewide business shutdowns in various different states. But anyway, I'm not gonna belabor this thing or go off into that tangent. Guys, check out some of my books as well. You can see them in the screen at the end of this video. They are available in limited paperback quantities, but mostly on ebook. That's Amazon Kindle and Apple iBooks. Guys, have a great night. Thanks for watching. You've been watching Maddie's Rap, the show where we rap about things that guys rap about when we hang out. Peace and blessings. Have a great day or afternoon or evening. Peace.